Okay, so this is our ticket to class 4. So we're just going to go over kind of all of these PALs, RALs, and things like that. So the first thing that we're going to start off with is looking at our spine. So I don't really have a patient, but I'll be one. So you would like for somebody to be kind of in, this cat-camel position. And right off the bat, I would like for either their shirt to be off or just to kind of like roll it up a little bit so you can see what's going on. You're looking for kind of like any hypertrophic bands or anything like that. Any deformations that you may notice. And these are just kind of like static deformations and things like that. Then what you can do is kind of get them into this cat camel where we're flexing everything, bringing everything up, and then extending into the cat, flexing into the camel. So what we would be looking for is every single segment to essentially flex. So we're looking segment by segment, and then to extend segment by segment. So I could actually take my fingers and kind of walk them up the spinous processes, kind of like this. And you have to obviously be in sync with them. And what we're really trying to note is any blocks or like any hinges where a block would kind of look a little, I guess, flatter. Yeah, it would look a little flatter when you were flexing, and it would look a little rounder when you were extending, and a hinge where you're looking for one specific spot that's moving relative to the other. So, like I said, you can kind of use tapping, or you could even use like a band. So hold up, let me get that. So if you're finding a spot and it's kind of hard to localize that one segment, you can wrap it around your back like this, and it can kind of give you like an active assist into it. So let's just say, I don't know, this is probably like T7, T8 maybe, something like that, T9, and let's just say I wanted help extending. Now with the band, we're trying to extend from that one spot. It's giving me that tactile cue, but it's also actively assisting me into those positions. So once we do that, then what we could do is we can also use it kind of to load into flexion as well, because the band is still there. The next thing that we want to do, so if I'm reading this correctly, one of the bullet points is to explain the progressions for a PAL and a RAL. So I'm going to assume it's for the spine since I just did that. So one thing, let's just say hypothetically they were lacking in spinal flexion, and we would pick a segment or whatever. But what we could do is positional isometrics, where we're kind of like, I had the pillows behind my back, and we're looking for like 85 degrees of our passive, right? So we're kind of gonna put us there, and then what we could do is from here. So I'm gonna support my head, and now what we want to do is we kind of want to we want kind of a strength aspect. So we want something preventing us into flexion. Now we can kind of cross our arms and just like push into our chest like that, or something that helps a lot with flexion. And I'm using my niece's rolled up mermaid tail as a pillow. You can use a ball and just kind of squeeze into the ball like that. So positional isometrics would mean we're kind of just holding right here, hold, and this is working spinal flexion. If we wanted to do lift-offs, then we would just take away a pillow, and now we get more motion. So we're backing off, about 10, 15 degrees. We're getting more motion. Then what we can do, once we're here, is we can do kind of, and it's hard in this position, we can do we're kind of dipping our shoulder. So we're coming up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Then what we could do is little circles like this. So these are our end range circles, and then last but not least, if we wanted to do our isotonic motion, then concentrically we could do a crunch, and you can. This is up to you whether or not you want them to lift all the way up into a a sit up, but you can do a crunch and then slowly lower down, and that's your eccentric, your concentric and eccentric portion. Okay, so now that I already kind of did the thoracic and lumbar, we could kind of move on to the cervical spine. We'll do the cervical spine, the shoulder joint. We'll do the elbow joint, and we could do the wrist joint as well. So we're going to go through the kind of these progressions as, we'll go from positional isometrics to liftoffs, hovers, end range circles, or I'm sure I'm getting that wrong, but the circular motion, and last but not least, we'll go into isotonics, where we're going concentric and then eccentric. Okay, so what we could do first is we could work on cervical flexion. So it's very similar to before. We could do the supine, right? And then we're going to place our hand on our forehead for positional isometrics. So let's just say with 2 pillows, that's pretty much where I'm built up to for my max, so like close to 85%. So I'm pushing, 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 and relax, okay? Now if I wanted to do liftoffs, we back off 10 to 15 degrees, which I'm pretty confident this is. And now, what we can do is we just lift off. Now if we wanted to do hovers, right? So, if we wanted to do hovers, then immediately what I have next to me is my niece's Play-Doh. We could place that. Obviously, you would want something a little more stable. Place it underneath their head, and now they're going one way up and the other. And then last but not least, we kind of did this in class. I'll take my finger, but you can kind of do it with a pen as well. So cervical flexion up, and now we're just rotating clockwise and counterclockwise. So that's for the cervical spine. Next we could do the shoulder. So we'll work on extension, and I'm just in a seated position. I happen to have a back up here, so we'll do extension. I could, even if you don't have this back, you could always sit on the floor, and it's the same thing down here. So I'm here, right? So positional isometrics, right? So now what I'm doing is now this for me is already difficult. So I'm trying to lift off. I mean that right there is lift off. If I were to extend, like no motion, there's no motion there, which is not the purpose of this. But what makes this great is that if you just flex your trunk forward, it gets you that range. So you don't really need extra equipment. The more you kind of like hinge forward, the more range you get. That's how shoulder extension works. So positional isometrics, we would start right here. And this, this is something where we can load it. You can put, a dumbbell in your hand, a light dumbbell, a ball, whatever it may be. So you're holding here, back off 10 to 15 degrees. So if I'm here, now I'll back off 10 to 15 degrees, and now I'm lifting off. Lifting off. Next we can, same thing. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do this. Okay, good. You should be able to see. And I'm lifting off and over. And you can really feel your triceps and, rhomboids and lats firing a lot. As well as your, kind of like my posterior delt is on fire. Last but not least, you're not going to really be able to see, but the patient will, but you should be able to see. I'm going to come off, and I'm doing the circles. Just the circular motion behind me. Next, we can move to the elbow. So we'll do flexion. Okay. So this one is great because if you can wrap your hand around your other wrist, not only are you providing the position, like that passive part, getting them there, but then you can also provide resistance in that same spot. So let's just say I get to about right here, right? So I want to improve elbow flexion, right? So I'm gonna, with my fingers, my fingertips, I'm providing resistance. Hold, hold, hold. Then I back off 10 to 15 degrees. And now now once I'm here, I can just flip, and those are my lift-offs. So it's kind of hard to tell, but I am resisting through my fingers. Once we're able to do that, now I'm here, and now I can just rotate. And I wouldn't want to, but in theory, I guess I could keep my hand here for stability just in case, maybe even like a dummy hand to catch if the patient didn't feel. Oh, sorry. So we could do hovers first into my hand, hover, hover, wrist to fingers, hover, 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 and then we could do the circles. Last but not least, it's the same concept with the wrist. So I would build it up. We're building up to whatever position we can. So let's just say right here is where we stop. Okay. Now what we're going to do is positional isometric. So hold, 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 hold. Good. If we wanted it to do lift offs, so I'm backing off 10 to 15 degrees, and we're moving. We can do this against resistance. We can do it. I guess for these ones you wouldn't want to do it against resistance because that's more so of an isotonic. That's more of an isotonic contraction where we would do it loaded, but we can do our lift offs and then we can hover. So back, forth. So what I'm using is my pinky over my my middle palm crease right here. So I'm going pinky over this way, pinky over that way. Good. And then finally, last but not least, just wrist rotations. And I can, hold my finger here, and that's, we could do that. Very good. Okay, so in this segment, what we're going to go over is the multi-directional stability exercises. So the first one that we can do is, and we'll pretend that this is more of a TheraBand, which I don't have, but we'll do all our stars. So let's see, we're over here, yeah, and we can see what's going on, kind of extend it out, boom, different directions, really controlling that eccentric part, really thinking about as we move, we want to keep the same shoulder, we want to keep that shoulder nice and packed, and we want to keep it kind of in the same position within the joint as much as possible. So we're getting motion with our hand, but really what our hand is doing is it's stretching the band, and we're resisting it snapping back. That's really what we're doing. So we're moving in a nice, controlled motion. The next thing that we can do is I'm just using a pillow here, and this in and of itself, being a couch, is an unstable surface, but we can kind of do, I think they're called like hand switches. I would do this more so like on a half foam, kind of flipped upside down so the flat side is up, or even like a Bosu ball. And we're here, and we're just switching up and down. Same thing. I'm moving a little quick for the purposes of this video. That's stability for the entire core, and it's teaching you to absorb force while also maintaining stability at the same time. The last thing that we could do is we can incorporate motion into the stability. So we can do a push-up plus, where we're sinking all the way down, doing our push-up. We're still keeping our arm stable and pushing all the way up. This would be like a last-ditch effort when it came to that. So we saw one where it's more so of an open chain exercise. We don't have our body weight on our shoulders. We move from that to a body weight position in our hand switches. And then last but not least, we're doing motion while still maintaining that stability. Last but not least, a couple of kettlebell exercises for stability. So the first one, and this is going to be a little hard to record, but let's see if I can put it like this. All right. So I don't have a dumbbell or a kettlebell, but I do have this ball. It doesn't work the same, but we get the idea. So I'm here, right? And I mean, it's taught in like different steps. So I'll actually put it in this hand. So I would have the floor beneath me. So I was taught to, we're always looking at the ball with our eyes. We're always following it with our eyes. So we go off to our side, bring our elbow in, right? Trying to stay as stable as possible. We're trying to keep our arm as vertical as possible. So it's really just, we're trying not to move it. We're moving our body underneath it. And that's why we look at it. We get onto our knee, push up, get ourselves into our position with our legs, and stand up. And then we just reverse our steps. So knee down, hand down. I just bring my leg all the way through, my elbow down, and we lay back down. Starting in that same position, you'll start to really feel those stabilizers firing all around, all your rotator cuff muscles and things like that. The last one we could do, is essentially just walks, where we're holding it either 90 degrees or above head. You could even kind of flip the kettlebell where it's bottoms up, and you could just walk. You can walk forwards, backwards, side to side. You can have somebody perturbating you. There's just endless options over obstacles, things like that, to really work on that stability.